And we're live, and it's Wednesday, and it's Leading Women Weekly, and I have to keep our sign-on alive. Our fearless leader, Dryer Buzz, Yolanda Lattimore, is not with us on screen today. She's pulling the strings behind the scene. She is so busy with her soap business and many other things that she's taken a break from the camera today. So here I am. I'm Angela Stolka. I'm a communication expert and the second half of Leading Women Weekly. We're going to do something a little different today in the sense that it's not just going to be me. We're going to have a nice co-host with us, a friend of ours from around the way and particularly from Clubhouse. So I'm going to ask you to welcome Kay Miller. She goes by Obviously Kay. She's a health coach. She's a speaker, a trainer. She does all kinds of things. I'm going to let her give her introduction here for us. But she, at the very last minute, and I'm talking about just a couple of hours ago, she volunteered to join us, meaning we were like, you're going to join us. So anyway, thank you, Kay, for letting us twist your arm and joining us here as a leading woman on Leading Women Weekly. So why don't you tell the folks about yourself, and then we're going to dive in.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angela. I'm excited to be here. I love you guys, and I will do whatever I can to be of assistance. So, yes, my name is Kay. I'm a mother of 5, a serial entrepreneur, multi-passionate, and a transplant to the U.S. Virgin Islands. So that's where I am. And as far as what I love to do, I love getting to the root cause of dis-ease. I consider myself a health detective, and I use some basic principles to really get things done with people that are having issues with their health. And we don't necessarily have to test even to get that thing started. But when I get a chance to dig into your genes and do all the fun testing, I really do love it. And I love working with moms, especially because they help shape the future. And my heart especially goes out to our female entrepreneurs. So that's a little bit about me.
Well, that's fantastic. And, I've gotten to know Kay through Clubhouse and through Breakfast with Dryer Buzz on Clubhouse, which is Tuesday through Saturdays. And if you search, if you're on Clubhouse, you can just look for Dryer Buzz and you will find her room. It's from 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern time, Tuesday through Saturday. And so Kay has been fantastic in there. So it's kind of fun too to get to see your face because we're always, when we, if you've not been on Clubhouse, it's little tiny, it's the little avatars, so you can see what someone looks like, but it's just always nice to be able to see each other face to face. And and how great is it that Kay is in the Virgin Islands? We're here, and I'm in Atlanta. We have people on our Clubhouse from all over, and we have people on our broadcast from all over. And so it's exciting to be able to make the kinds of connections that didn't used to be possible. And so, we're making some great connections on Clubhouse. So, this is Women's History Month. So March is Women's History Month. We're kicking off. This is always a big month for us here at Leading Women, although every month is Women's History Month. So it seems appropriate that for Women's History Month that we will start by talking to somebody who talks about health, right? Because it's really is the baseline of everything we do is our health. And so, we're going to focus for the next hour. I'm going to let Kay just sort of give us the overview. I'm going to ask you some questions. We'll talk about some of the things that I think are, that I'm seeing related to stress and health, particularly for entrepreneurs, for women entrepreneurs. But I'm sure, we're just going to talk about whatever comes up, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
But as we get into this, just sort of to set the stage for I want to call it National Women's History Month, which it is not. It is Women's History Month, and it is also March. We have International Women's Day. This year it is Monday, March 8th, and I saved this from last year. A little thing, right? It's I don't know if you guys can see it. And it says Happy International Women's Day, and it's got this word cloud. This was one of the last times I went into a store before the pandemic last year.
Oh, wow.
March 9th was the last date that I went out, and I didn't go inside anywhere for over 6 months, right? I had everything delivered or the family helped because I'm a caregiver to a disabled person. So we really did go on strict lockdown. But it might have been the 9th. This might have been the last thing I did. I don't know what day it was, but they had a display. My grocery store, Publix, had a display of flower arrangements and pastries for International Women's Day. And I was like, well, flowers and sweets and sweet breads. Yay. So I thought that was interesting that International Women's Day, at least here in the States, has gotten to the point where Publix is doing flower arrangements for it. So, I don't know that they'll be doing them this year, but, it looked like the sort of thing that, you might come in and there was going to be something at the office. And so you pick up some pastries and you pick up the flowers, whatever. So I got the flowers and I have my little International Women's Day. So that's March 8th. And they have, gosh, let me see if I can find it here. I had it pulled up. They have, every year they have a theme. So their theme this year is choose to challenge, right? So hashtag choose to challenge. And it's like, hold your hand up high. I don't know if you guys can see that. Yeah, choose to challenge. Yeah, take the pledge of what you're going to challenge. So I think this is nice that we're going to choose to challenge some of these things around health and wellness. So I've been yakking enough. I'm going to kick it back over to you in a minute, Kay. We'll wrap up. I've got a stack of books. You always have a stack of books, but we've got a stack of books that we could talk about some of the things that we'll be reading this month. Follow us. Please follow us in all of our, I'm finally on the right side to point up to where all of our Facebook, YouTube, we're on Twitter. Look for our hashtag, not just hashtag leading women, but also hashtag leading women read. So this month I'm going to be sharing books from all types of leading women. Some of those that I know because we have friends that have books that are worth promoting. Others that will cover. I think there's a great diversity of womanhood, and it will be interesting. So, books. I'll share some podcasts. We'll be sharing, TV, film. It's a great opportunity. There's so many different ways to connect with women whose experience may be different than yours. So, anyway, we'll hit on that at the end, but I want to kick you now, Kay, and to go into a little bit more about when you talk about being a health detective, right? Because I think this is such a fantastic term, because so many of us, particularly you get to a certain age and you think, I just don't feel right. I don't feel like myself, right? I feel tired. I feel depressed, whatever. But I don't know exactly what's wrong. So can you sort of talk about why we need health detectives as women, and sort of what you see as some of the since we're challenging some of the challenges around that. And I'm going to sip some coffee. I hope you're not anti-coffee.
No, I'm not anti anything. I am you do what you want to do kind of coach. So definitely the reason I think that we need a health detective or a health coach, as the normal phrase is for what I do in our lives, is because our doctors and our healthcare system, at least here in America, just don't have the time. There are lots of wonderful doctors out there that want you to feel amazing and be great and be your best you, but they just do not have the time. What is it, like 7 to 20 minutes or something, the average doctor visit? It's not enough time to get enough information from you to really diagnose what's going on with you, unless it's an extreme condition where you may lose your life.
Right.
And that's what they're really great at. They're really great at making sure we don't have broken bones and making sure we don't lose our life, when it's getting really close to that kind of issue. But if you're just kind of not feeling well, you're kind of run down, you're a little tired, a little moody or something, maybe you have a weird ache here or there that doesn't make sense. They just don't have the time to really dig into that and figure out what that's coming from and what's behind that. And so I love being able to do that. I get to have those conversations. Normally, if I am spending time with someone one-on-one, coaching them through a health issue, we start off with an hour-long conversation. So we get to really dig into what your health history has been like, what your lifestyle is like, what you want to achieve as far as your health is concerned. And with all of the questions and the answers and the communication, we can get a really good picture of what's going on. And if you've already been to a doctor and you've got blood testing and some diagnoses and things going on, even better, because we can kind of start from where you are. But if you haven't had the time or the ability to do that, we can start with what you know, and we can start with the basics. And the basics seem to be the same across the board, right? All of us need to sleep. All of us need to eat. better. We all need to get more water. We all need to move. So we usually start with those 4 things, making sure you're getting the right sleep, because just going to sleep is not good enough. And some of us can't sleep, especially if you're having a hormonal issue. You may have insomnia, you may have, night sweats, or you're waking up in the middle of the night, or you can't get to bed, and all of those kind of things as far as your health is concerned. So if we can start with like getting your sleep together, that's like monumental for so many women. It's just life changing, because so much happens inside your body while you're actually asleep.
Yeah, I think this is great. And what you just listed there, I think, is be a nice sort of segmentation of some of the of let's break it down into those basic areas. Sleep, right? So sleep, eat, move. What was the 4? So there's
hydrate
and hydrate.
Sleep,
okay.
Move, hydrate. Yeah.
Right. Sleep, move, hydrate, and what we're eating. Right. So let's go through this, because I want to start with sleep. And this is one of those things that I feel very strongly about under this category of leading women. Why I think this is so important for us to be talking about this, especially around this theme of this is women's history. Throughout history, women have sacrificed, particularly sleep, for every kind of caregiving that is known. I mean, if you have a baby, you're going to lose sleep, but it has been the women who have been called upon to do the care. Then you throw in there, when you are working, in the workforce, and particularly if you're working a job for somebody else who's dictating your time and your schedule, the thing that women typically cheat on is sleep. And so this is one of those things where I call myself a hustle heretic. Right. So, I used to be a hustle evangelist. Right. And then if we hustle, we're just going to hustle and grind. We're going to get the grind. We're going to grind it. We're going to grind. Now, I will say personally, I've never been a person who could do without sleep. I have had chronic health problems since I was a child. And fatigue is one of the dominant issues that I suffer from. And so I've always had to get my sleep. That I never could cheat sleep. And I used to say, if I only needed 4 hours of sleep, I'd be rich, right? I'd be rich a million times over, because I gotta get my sleep. But I still was like, hustle, go. And I've just watched so many people destroy their health. And this is men and women. Men are actually worse about destroying their health, to me, than women. I mean, you just hear about, but you hear about particularly men just dropping dead, right? They just fall over from a heart attack. But I see women suffer more of the more chronic illnesses. So can you talk a little bit more about the importance of sleep and why we can't just say, I'm going to get up an hour. I'm going to get up an hour earlier. I'm going to stay up an hour later. And that's how I'm going to get things done.
The whole I'll sleep when I'm dead thing.
That's it. I'll sleep when I'm dead. Guess what? You're going to be dead.
Like, exactly.
Be dead from no sleep.
Yes, I found that one out the hard way, unfortunately. Luckily, I'm not dead. I'm still here. But, but definitely, like you said, the fatigue is definitely one of those issues. And you're always thinking, well, I stayed up late, so that's why I'm tired. Well, yes, that's part of it. But you're also destroying your adrenals and how your hormones function and so many other things. It can lead to so much anxiety and depression and things that we're dealing with, because your body's just not able to process all the things it needs to while you're sleeping and clear out your brain and clear out the toxins. So one of the things that I usually do with people if they're having problems sleeping properly is start with getting up earlier, actually, as counterintuitive as that seems. If I can get you up earlier, I can get you to go to bed sooner, because you're going to be more tired. Because you've been up earlier, and you'll be more willing to, okay, fine, I'm going to cut the TV off. I'm going to go to bed because I am tired now. So it's really, really hard. And unfortunately, like you said, if you're dealing with a newborn or any child, because they don't care what time it is, when they have, something in the middle of the night, they have an issue or whatever, they come to mom, they come to us. Everybody comes to us. So we're used to sacrificing our sleep. And we have to be a little bit selfish when we can. Of course, when you have a newborn, you can't. You have to do something. Right. So hopefully, if you have a partner, you can come to an agreement where you can share that responsibility a little bit, because that also leads into when you're dealing with postpartum depression, and those things are also from those hormones and all that's going on and not getting enough sleep. And it can really help to support someone that is dealing with that. If they can get a little bit more sleep, a little bit more quality sleep, especially. So sleeping away from the baby somewhere where you can't hear it if it's not your night to get up and things like that are very helpful. Yeah, so usually, like I said, I start with the morning. If I can get you to get up, if it fits your schedule of life and work and whatever you're doing, to get up at 5 a.m. and to be awake when the sun is rising and be able to get outside and see that sunlight hit your eyes, or at least look at it through a window, that is ideal for our human makeup as human beings. We are kind of attuned to that. If we can rise with the sun and set and relax with the sun, our bodies perform in a more optimal manner. So I love, when people can do that. And even better, the next step is if you can take your shoes off and go outside and do a bit of grounding while you're watching that sunrise and that sun come up, and it changes like everything in your system. I don't even know how to explain it. Luckily, I'm not the doctor, so I don't have to use all the fancy terms. I just know it works.
Well,
I'm like, I just know it works. Just do it.
Yeah, my mom was one who was very early adopter of grounding and earthing, right? And we even had she gave us all earthing pads, for Christmas one year. But when we were little kids, now I grew up in the country, and so it was everybody went outside barefooted, right? But now, I would not send kids out barefooted, right? And just in the yard, right? I mean, in controlled circumstances. So we've really moved away from having our bare feet on the ground. But there is something that is so, like I say, you can feel it. You can tell the difference when you put your feet on the ground. And so, I try to make that, just go sit. I have a place where I, put my chair and, put my feet in a place where I know that, there's no dogs running around. There's nothing, where I know it's clean dirt, right? But where I can just, for at least a few minutes, put my bare feet on the ground. And when I don't do it, I can tell. So like, particularly in the winter, I tend to do that less. Right. So I absolutely, I know it sounds, so this is so attention leading women, this is a great thing, an easy thing to do, right? It's just to find a little time, go put your feet out, go put your feet on the ground, right? You don't have to crush them in the dirt. You don't have to get your feet dirty, right? Because we're like, well, my feet will be dirty. No, just place your feet lightly on the ground, and not on cement, right? Not on concrete. You need to be on the dirt and the ground. So that's a great one to think of it as a companion to sleep, right? So I'm gonna reset us here. What we're about 20 minutes in. This is Leading Women Weekly. I'm your host, Angela Stalkup. Our guest host today is Kay Miller. She goes by obviously Kay. She's a health coach, trainer, entrepreneurial advocate, mompreneur, mom supporter. So she's got all kinds of things going on. We're talking about how the cornerstone of leadership for women has got to be your health. And so we're talking about sort of 4 pillars to think about as you are contemplating being your own leader, being the leader of your own health. Right. So we're talking about sleep. We're going to talk about what you eat, about movement. And what's the 4th one?
Hydration.
And I've got a mental block to hydration. All right. Which probably says something. So before we move on from sleep, I just want to talk about quality of sleep, because I think that we're talking about quantity of sleep, and you have to sleep train yourself, and like you say, get up, you set a time you get up, you set a time you go to sleep, you try to stick by those, right? And I and I just, full disclosure, I don't go to bed till about 3, and that's not my choice, right? I lay down around midnight, but I'm up in the night with caregiver duties, and so I go to sleep, but I don't really get solidly sleep till 3. So for me, I would love to be getting up at 5. And there was a time that I would have felt really like a moral failure for not being able to get up early in the morning. But because my schedule right now, and I mean, it won't be forever, right? well, let me knock on wood on that, is weird. I make sure that if I don't get a solid amount of sleep, that I will take a real nap, right? So I think there is something in to make sure, just if something, like I say, if you just can't get your 7 hours or your 8 hours or your 9 hours, I'd sleep 9 hours. That's me.
Yeah. If you're a Clubhouse addict like I am.
Yeah. You know, you could you can find other times to sleep. It's not ideal, but it will work.
I
So
literally took a nap right before this.
there you go. And I think that's, I say I oftentimes take a nap in this 1 to 3 window because I know it's a quiet time, right? And it's a time that my sister rests. And so I know that I can, if I want to have undisturbed, everything on do not disturb, and I can have 2 hours of undisturbed sleep. And by adding that when I can, it really does help. So, so we're going to work on quantity, but let's talk about quality, because I've never had a problem. I mean, which is very rare, probably because I'm just tired all the time of insomnia, night sweats. I'm at that age where you start having these things. So that's not been a problem for me, but for a lot of women, the inability to sleep. I mean, it's torture of not being able to go to sleep, or of waking up, not being able to get back to sleep, or just repeatedly waking up. So can you speak a little bit to the idea of the quality of sleep?
Yeah, definitely. So yes, the quality of sleep is the next big key. So if you can get up in the mornings, that sets you up to be tired, hopefully by the evening. The next thing that we have going on is we have a lot of interference in our lives because of our lovely electronics that some of us take with us to bed. Please don't do that if you can avoid it. There's a lot of research out there about the light and how it affects us. So basically, we're sitting here on our computers right now, or our phones, or whatever you're using, and the light that's being emitted from this device, it is the same type of light as if you went outside in the afternoon when the sun is at high noon. So it's setting your brain, and it's telling your brain it's afternoon, it's afternoon, it's afternoon. So if you're doing that at 6, 7 o'clock at night, it's going to be a lot harder for you to go to sleep, because your circadian rhythm, which is what kind of lets your body go up and down, and it helps you to regulate your sleep, it's confused if you're doing this late at night. So if you're doing it in the afternoon, you're like, we're here it's almost 3 o'clock for me. I'm okay. But by 6, 7 o'clock, I usually have the devices shut off, or we're using our blue blockers if we haven't been using them all day. Try to use them all day, but definitely if you need to do something late at night, use some blue blockers. Turn the lights down on your devices, but even better would be to get off of them entirely, at least an hour or so before you actually want to go to bed. So if you can spend that time getting ready for bed, taking your bath or your shower or whatever it is, to wind down and maybe reading a book, or even better yet, if you have a spouse or someone that you're with, turn off the lights and lay in bed and have a nice little chat in the dark so that you can wind down and relax. So having the TV and the devices even just in your room for some people can set off, things that makes it harder for them to sleep. So sometimes you just want to clear all of that completely out of your room and charge it somewhere else. It doesn't need to charge next to you. So that's one thing that can help a lot with the quality of your sleep, is how you use devices. Use them for your benefit. Another thing is our melatonin is one of the things that regulates that circadian rhythm and everything, so that we can fall asleep. So for some people, you may have a problem with either processing or creating all of these type of things in your body. So you may need to take a supplement. A lot of people will take magnesium to help out with that, to help them to sleep better and to sleep longer, have more quality sleep. That getting up in the morning and looking at the sunrise, helps. And then looking at the sunset also helps to kind of regulate that whole system, to help your body to produce the right chemicals at the right time. Hey, Dr. Tachi.
Oh, hey. I was just going to look for comments. That's fantastic. Thanks, Tachi, for saying, Dr. Tachi, for saying hi. I meant to throw in here, because we're not, neither Kay nor I are the producers, we can't see the comments. So if Yolanda's back behind the scenes doing this, but so if you are commenting, if you've commented and we're just ignoring you, That's because we can't see them. So anyway, Yolanda's keeping an eye on that. But thank you, Dr. Tachi, for joining us. So I didn't mean to interrupt you there, Kay, but I was like, can I see any comments? I'm over here with doing this, trying to see through the bottom of my glasses. So yeah, so I'm sorry. So yes, continue with melatonin.
Yeah, so that's great, definitely. So the looking at the sunset again, I was saying would be another way that you can kind of help regulate your system so it can produce the right chemicals at the right time. Because what you want to think about is, remember, we're humans, right? And we all work differently, but at the end of the day, we're kind of like a oiled machine that needs to be ran properly. We need all the key ingredients in order to do what we need to do, just like a car needs gas and oil and transmission fluid. We need all the right things at all the right times in order to perform at our optimum. So making sure you're getting all of that by looking at the sunrise, looking at the sunset, turning off the devices. Those are just the simple free things that you can do.
Yeah.
The next thing is making sure you are aware of your temperature and things in your room, whatever makes you comfortable. So it's not too hot, it's not too cold. Some people are really enjoying these weighted blankets. That's been really helpful for some people to kind of help them calm down and be able to sleep. And I also just wanted to go back to something that you said earlier about men and dropping dead and that kind of thing, and their stress and how it's different. Heart disease is actually one of the leading causes of death for women. And a lot of us don't realize it because our symptoms are different and we don't realize what they are. And one of those symptoms that we dismiss or count it off as something else is the night sweats. So if you're having a night sweat where your entire bed is soaked in the morning, you really want to see your doctor about that, because that's probably an issue that's more linked to heart disease than menopause. So the night sweats, the fatigue, trying to think of what the other ones are, but there are quite a few different symptoms that we don't realize as women are actually symptoms of heart disease that we really should get that checked out. And that it kind of ties in with the sleep thing because of the fatigue and the sweats, and I can't think of the other one right now. I'd have to look it up. But definitely, if you have never done that and you are a woman, I assume you're probably a woman. Even if you're not, if you love a woman, look up the symptoms of heart disease for women specifically and know those so you can be aware. It's not that pain in the chest like we're used to watching the old movies. Oh, Alice,
grabbing your yeah. Okay, we will have to acknowledge that for Yolanda, who loves Sanford and Son.
Yes.
It is not the Fred Sanford. I'm coming, Elizabeth.
I'm coming. Yeah.
Yeah. So Yolanda, that one's for you. And so before we move on, I do also want to mention something that I learned about years ago was the importance of sleeping in the dark. And so getting having light blocking curtains, making sure and I make sure that there is nothing with anything with a face on it is covered. Now we've moved away from having clocks in our room, but for years I always made sure I just kept a little index card in front of my clock face, right? So that there is I try to keep as dark as a cave, right? As dark as I can possibly keep it. And so I have found that to be very useful. I know it works because when we used to travel, when I would go someplace where I did not have access to light blocking curtains, I could really see the difference in the quality of my sleep. So the good news on that is that those, again, are not expensive. It's you can, back in the day, I actually bought fabric and made my own because they were hard to find. But now, I got some from Target. I mean, you can get them at Walmart. This is quite common. So, being able to, we're talking about making your room comfortable. You may not realize how much light is not just ambient light, but it's coming through the windows. Because even with this window, you can see that just the angle of this is a little weird here. You can see the light coming through. I make sure all that's tucked down before I go to sleep. So there's no.
The side. And that's really helpful for people that do shift work as well. If you can't sleep at night and wake up at 5 a.m., if you're doing that shift work, it's really good to have those curtains and having a little face mask if you can stand it. I hate the face mask personally.
It's like I'm like, oh, I feel it.
I'm trapped.
Yeah.
but yeah, some people love them and they're very soothing and relaxing for some people. So yeah, definitely any way you can make it darker, the better.
Yeah.
And the other thing for the quality of your sleep would be also paying attention to when you eat your last meal. So I know a lot of us love that late night snack and things like that, but if you can make sure that the time you're going to get in bed to go to sleep at and the time that you have your last meal has at least 3 to 4 hours between it, your body will have fully digested your food. And since it has fully digested your food, it can focus on quality sleep and doing all the things that it needs to do for sleep. Otherwise, it's trying to finish digesting, and then you won't have as good quality sleep. So that's my.
These are excellent points around sleep. And sometimes we hear all these things and it just seems like, oh gosh, there's so many things and I don't know where to start. So I think it's if you just take one thing from this conversation today, just one thing that you can add or shift to improve your we'll say to improve the quality of your sleep, but to improve the quality of your health. So just to for anybody joining us after the 2:00 hour, this is Leading Women Weekly. I'm Angela Stalkup. Our regular co-host Yolanda is taking a break today. She's but she's pulling the strings behind the sscenes. And we have our guest host today, Kay Miller, who goes by obviously Kay. She's a health detective, or a health. Maybe you know better as a health coach.
Magnifying
I want you to
glass.
have
I need to get a little hat,
the Sherlock Holmes hat. And the magnifying glass, and the obviously health detective. Absolutely. And then I need a little cartoon of with where you're going on little health detective adventures, right? So in the Virgin Islands. So this is great. So Kay is in the U.S. Virgin Islands and joining us today. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. A beautiful day in Atlanta. I'm assuming a beautiful day where you are as well. And as we move into spring. But we've been talking about how to really be the leader of your health, and that it's really important that the baseline of everything we do is our health. So we've just been talking about sleep. So if you missed this point, go back about 20 minutes. You get to hear all about sleep. We're going to move now into I've changed up the order every time, but since you mentioned the last thing you mentioned was not eating too soon before bed, why don't we move into eating, right? So we're talking about sleep, eat, move, hydrate. So so talk a little bit about things we can think of, because everybody's got a diet, everybody's on a cleanse, everybody is avoiding everything, and I think people get overwhelmed with that.
They do, and because it is overwhelming. There is no one answer. I'm going to start with that. If there was one answer, we would have found it, and none of us would be having all the health issue problems we're having. So I really lead from that position. I know a lot of people are steadfast that you have to be keto or you have to be vegan, or I'm not that coach. I'm sorry, because the research doesn't seem to agree with that. It is definitely better to eat more vegetables, but at the same time, it depends on your body. What is happening inside your system? Because you may have something going on inside your system that every time you eat broccoli, as wonderful as broccoli is for you, or garlic even, because it's a lovely antioxidant, your stomach is just all turned up inside out and you look like you're 9 months pregnant and you're gassy and miserable. So there is no one super healthy, good food, because we all have different microbiomes, different bacteria, different things going on in our guts that are processing these things in different ways, unfortunately. So,
well, and Dr. Tachi has jumped in and said that she loves the concept of the health detective, and I think this is particularly where you need your magnifying glass, where you have to have your detective skills, because what works for one person does not work for the next. And I think we all know this to be true just from conventional wisdom, but you threw something in there, and I've had this testing done, and I think it's really significant, which is your gene testing and looking at the genome and what it shows us about diet. So is that one of the things that because I heard you say something about if we look at some of your genes, have you done any research into that, into genes and food?
I have, and I still am. The science, quote unquote, is still out on that. There's a lot of argument back and forth of how accurate it is and how much you can rely on it. Personal anecdotally, I totally believe it's amazing and it works for me. what I've seen, I've had things that I've avoided just off of, intuition. You're like, oh, this doesn't seem to be the thing I should be eating. It's not sitting right with me or whatever. And then now as a health coach years later or whatever, I'm looking at my genetic expressions. I know how to pull the raw data out of like a 23andMe test
Right.
and figure it out and look at it. And I have a great book that I share with anyone that wants to look at theirs themselves or have a coach go through it with them. I'm not, what is the actual term, genetic counselor or anything like that. So we're not looking for disease or anything, but we do look at things like your detox pathways. So your detox pathways are super, super important when it comes to all of this. If your detox pathways are not working properly, which is something that I'm happy we know about, because for years and years, people would say, oh, I'm going to do a detox or whatever. And you'd have somebody be like, you don't need to do a detox. That's what your kidneys are for or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if those detox pathways are not working properly, a detox may be good for you. And I don't mean go drink grapefruit juice for 3 weeks or something. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an actual cleansing protocol that helps your body and supports your system to be able to clear out some of the junk that may be stuck in there and not quite processing properly because your body just, you're not a well-oiled machine at that time. Something's wrong. You got to get in there and get a mechanic to kind of work it out, or a health detective, just figure out what you should stop putting in that system because it can't process it. So just personally from my history and my story, I remember the first time I had a Red Bull when they were first coming out and they were really popular. I was on set and they were handing them out like candy. Hey, we've got this drink, try it out. And I tried one. And I am not a person that, really indulges in anything. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke, none of that, because I'm naturally like, woo, I don't need anything extra. So I had this Red Bull, Angela, and I went woo-woo. Wow. I went crazy nuts. I was just like bouncing off of things. I was like, this can't be good. I feel like jittery. Like, what did they give me? Like, must be what it feels like to be on drugs. And never again did I have a Red Bull. Occasionally I would have coffee, but not very much. And it would be more cream and sugar than coffee. And also I remember having like a cherry Coke or something and sitting there the whole day with my leg just shaking. And I'm like, what is this? And so after those 2 or 3 things that kind of added up, I'm like, you know what? I just don't need caffeine in my life. I just won't be a coffee drinker. I'm going to skip that. We don't need it. And so sure enough, here I am later on in life, I'm looking at my genetic expression and it says I can't detox caffeine properly.
I was going to say, I bet you're a slow processor of caffeine. Yes. I know I'm a fast processor. And so I can slug back the coffee all day and it's done, right? But there are other parts of my detoxification pathway that are jammed up. And thankfully, I was lucky. I'm very lucky to have a doctor who is very progressive on these things. And she introduced me to this concept years ago. And we started treating things that were specific to me. And that, that to your point, that, you can't, I can do coffee, but there's other things that I can't do. There's things I have to be aware of. Right. And it's, but you have to have somebody who's really going to get in there and help you figure it out. And so, to anybody who's interested in this, please follow up with Kay. We're going to give you all of her contact information because very few doctors will do it. And so there's ways that you can really start to personalize what is going on with you. And I think this is the big challenge, is that even in your own family, right? Because if we're looking at things being unique to you as your gene combination, like I've got the people in my family, and we're looking at particularly not just my immediate family, but extended family. And we've got the ones that are just naturally thin and they can just eat anything and they never feel sick and they never gain weight and they all live to be old. And then there's the other part of the family that they can't look at a sweet and not gain weight. We all have autoimmune and fatigue disorders, right? I talk to, my siblings who have these issues, and it's like, you feel like you're walking a razor's edge of what you can eat, a razor's edge of how much rest you get and stress, because anything can push you over the edge, while the other ones, again, it's like, they're like garbage cans. They can just do whatever, never get sleep, never do whatever. My granny is 106 years old. And she just ate whatever she wanted, did whatever she wanted. She's fine, right? 106 doing, she's in a nursing home, but she's fine, right? It was like I got a quarter of her genes. I didn't get the gene though that lets me just go, go, go. So sometimes we compare ourselves in our families and we think, there's something wrong with my willpower. There's something wrong with me personality wise versus saying I just have a different system and my system processes things. And the people though that just look like they can eat anything and do anything, there are other consequences to that. And those family members have had other issues with other kinds of chronic, instead of being tired all the time, but then you have cancer, heart attacks, things like that, that also could have been helped perhaps,
Correct.
by having healthier lifestyle. So, if you just use weight, right? Like if I'm thin, I'm healthy. If you just use your weight as the criteria, you are really missing out, because skinny people die too, right? Just, alert. But you can mistakenly think that because you're thin, you're healthy, right? And I think you also can mistakenly think that because you are, above, you're overweight, that somehow you're not healthy. There's a whole, fit and fat. There's just so much that we won't get into here. But to say, well, I'm going to eat this way, but I'm not going to, I'm not really losing any weight, does not necessarily mean that there's anything wrong. That you're like, well, I'm not going to eat this, if I eat healthy over here but I don't lose any weight, I'm not going to stick with it. That can't be your motivation. Health has to be your motivation. So this idea of what you're eating is so huge, right? So maybe let's just take what is one thing that you would recommend to leading women, right? That they could do that would help them to think about a healthy food choice right now. Is there one thing? I know it's for everybody it's different, but is there something?
Well, I can give you a tip.
Okay.
I have a tip for leading women when it comes to food. Well, it's a kind of a two-part tip. Number one, whatever you're going to eat, even if you decide to go pick up a burger at McDonald's, no judgment here. I want you to take the time to eat it, to savor it, to smell it, to digest it, to chew it. That alone changes a lot of things that we eat. So if you can take the time to really take that food, put it in front of you, inhale it, smell it, look at it, bite into it, and take your time. Try to chew each bite 20 times if you can. You want it to turn into mush because there's no teeth in our stomach. If you can do that one thing with every meal going forward, you'll learn a lot about what you do and don't like. You'll learn a lot about how your body processes and how you feel. And it'll curb a lot of the overeating that some of us do, because it slows you down and it gives your body a chance to actually digest it.
I think that's a beautiful tip. Don't judge what it is, just be in the experience of it and you'll see a big shift. Yeah. So that's great. So great advice from Kay Miller. Obviously, Kay, our health detective. This is Leading Women Weekly. Here at the beginning of March, Women's History Month. I'm Angela. We're talking about how health is going to help you. And health issues are going to help you, to do better. But to say that to really valuing these things, to saying that it's a value, like we talk so much about productivity, right? I got to be productive. I've got to be structured. I've got to be organized, that we forget that all of that exists on the foundation of our health, on the foundation of our energy, on the foundation of just our calm, our well-being. All of these things are going to help all those other things. Yet these are the places where we tend to cheat, right? Where we say, well, I'm going to, I'm busy. And so I'm not going to get some sleep. I'm going to skip a meal. Right. So I don't have time to eat. Right. Or I don't have time to fix something for myself. I don't have time to think. I don't have time to think about what I'm going to eat. And I know for me, this has been a huge challenge of saying, this funny thing is my sister is on she's got, with her health, everything I make from scratch is organic, all of her food. I don't eat her food because I worry about running out of her food. And so I will have spent hours cooking organic, fresh, everything, right? Super balanced, super healthy, and then think, I don't have anything to eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And either we'll skip a meal or we'll do an Uber Eats, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm really, and people think, oh God, Angela, what's wrong with you? You've got this food. But if I run out of her food, right, there's no substitute for her, right? If she eats, there's things, she just is, it will make her instantly ill, right? So sometimes I'm just like, I don't dare eat this because I don't know when I'm next going to be able to get to the grocery store. I mean, so just making the food doesn't mean that you'll necessarily eat it. So this is again also a bit of my own hang up. So understanding that we will cut those corners, right? And that's, if you can't do that, and well, let me say this, I forgive myself for when I do that, right? I forgive myself when I do that. And my goal is to do less of it, right? So let's roll right on in, because we're going to try to land this plane in an hour. And so we've talked about sleep, right? Try to see the sunrise, try to see the sunset, create a great sleep environment in your room, in your, what you have control over in your bedroom. We talked about trying to be the health detective of what you're eating, and just savoring what you're eating, right? Oh, hey, it's the Real Moms of Homeschooling. I love it. It's Lakeisha. Hello, welcome. Thanks for popping in. Talk about the moms, our mom helpers. So we talked a little about food. Let's go right into hydration, because that's funny to me that there are people that don't like to drink water. And I'm a water drinker, right? And in fact, fancy alkaline, I want fancy water, right? I used to get, before the pandemic, I went to the health food store and got the big Kangen. There's a thing called Kangen water. I would get the Kangen water. I would have the 3-gallon things, and I get this fancy alkaline ionized water. It's wonderful. I highly recommend it. I've not been able to get that, so now I have my own little filter at home to try to do something the same. I love water. I love alkaline water, but I don't understand. But I know there are a lot of people that don't like water. So can you talk to us about hydration? Is hydration just mean water? Does my coffee count? Tell us a little bit about hydration.
Yes. Your coffee kind of cancels out your water a little bit, but not totally. So coffee, tea, juice, I mean, everything has a little bit of liquid in it, even if you're eating your vegetables, your fruit. So you are getting hydrated through some of those things, but some things are also dehydrating. So that's why I say your coffee kind of cancels it out a little, because it kind of dehydrates you a bit. So that's something to be aware of, how much water versus coffee you are drinking. So no, adding berries does not cancel out your water. So that's what I was going to say. When people say they don't like drinking water, or they don't drink water, or can't drink water, I'm saying you just haven't met the right water. So water can be quite delicious if you can find the right water. I remember watching a guy that was kind of like a water connoisseur. He had all these waters out on the table, kind of like a guy with wine, and he was tasting them. I was like, what?
Yes. It's Zach. What's his name? I was like to say, the boy from High School Musical did a documentary. I don't know if that's the one you saw, but they had the water concierge, and it's all these waters. And I was like, a friend of mine sent me and said, "You got to go watch this. She said, you and your waters. This is the guy for you, the water concierge."
Water connoisseur.
And I was like, yes. Water tastes different. Different water tastes different. It
does. Definitely does. And so if you can find a water filter that makes your water taste the way you want it to taste, that is a win. If you can add berries, like Yolanda's mentioning, that is a win. Whatever you can do to get more liquid into your body, because I can't remember the percentage right now, but we are a higher percentage of water than we realize.
70% or more?
70%, yeah. And so when you think about leveling things out and balancing things out, and the difference between overwatering something and over diluting it and not putting in enough water, is that's one of the things that also messes with how our bodies are processing. So if we do not have enough water, our bodies can't process and do all these things it's supposed to do. So one tip is, if you can have a water bottle next to your bed, so that when you first wake up in the morning, you're drinking that. That's one way to get in a few ounces If you can do that with, it's like a 2 cup worth water bottle, that's perfect. A great way to start your morning. Some people have switched to doing that and don't need their caffeine or their coffee anymore because all their body really needed was hydration.
Was water. Yeah. Lakeisha says the struggle of drinking water is real. And, you know, like I say, there for a lot of people, this is for I like water. And I really learned about hydration when I started, oh gosh, it's been almost 20 years ago when I started running and I joined a running club. And my running was very slow, but, and they, you know, you can't be a runner and not hydrate. And so we had all kinds of lessons. I was in a little club and they bring speakers in, about hydration, particularly if you were doing distance running. I don't do longer than a 10K, but even for that, for a 5K, you have to think about your water and your water consumption, but all the time. And that's where I learned this recommendation. And I believe they even called it like a water diet, is that you would want to drink, however, measure out your water for the day. I believe they were recommending this 3 liters, sound right? Of water a day that you would drink, and on top of than what you would drink. And so that you would get up in the morning and drink a liter. At lunch, drink a liter. In the evening, early enough, drink a liter, and then still be drinking to make sure that you stayed adequately hydrated throughout the day. And I tell you, it made a huge difference. I don't drink quite that much like that. And I don't drink at a time, but absolutely to make sure that I have water first thing. And I will tell you, Miss Cicely Tyson, who lived a beautiful life, she got up every morning and drank water. This is, I listened to her memoir, beautiful memoir. And she did celery juice. So she's one who I know, my brother has been doing celery juice. That's it's very old and is new again. So she did water and celery juice, and she credits that for looking fantastic and feeling fantastic, for her life. Yolanda has said, please welcome obviously K. I said simply K. Obviously K, who's sitting in for Yolanda, and you can follow her at obviously KDM on Instagram. Absolutely, you want to follow Kay, and then we're going to give you some more information here about Kay shortly. So we're going to get a bottle. We're going to keep it by our bed, and in the morning we'll drink water. Now it helps. I have no problem with that because I have low thyroid. I have to take thyroid medication, and I have to take it an hour before I eat. So that's very helpful, because this means I get up in the morning, I have something that triggers me to drink water, because I have to wait, and I can't have caffeine. You can't have coffee. You can't have anything with it. So, I've had to, over the years, I've had to build that routine. So you can absolutely build a routine that you get up and you just drink your glass of water, right? And it really does. It does. I mean, it makes a difference. So, all right. So we're rolling up. We're rolling up here on an hour. So let's move to movement. Let's try. It's good. We should be moving here. I need to move my feet a little bit as we talk about our 4th pillar. So we've talked about sleep. We've talked about eating. We've talked about hydration. And so now, what about moving? Do I have to have a standing desk? Do I have to have a treadmill desk? What do I have to do? Okay. What is the, what do we need to know about movement?
Just do it. Just move, like Nike. Nike said it best. Yes. I think a lot of us get hung up on, okay, I have to put on my workout clothes, my tennis shoes. I have to go to the gym and do this set regimented exercise that I don't want to do, that I hate doing. I don't want to run. I don't want to lift weights, whatever it is. Let all that go. Find some sort of movement that you love to do. Dancing in front of the mirror, or dancing while you're vacuuming and sweeping, whatever it is, just move and do it more often. If you're at a desk job, try and make sure you stand up maybe every hour and take a walk around the office or something like that, because I think most of the research is showing these days that those little spurts of movement are way more important and way more effective for us than going to the gym for an hour. That doesn't mean don't go to the gym for an hour. If you're doing that, keep doing it. It's great. Building your muscles and your bones, especially for women. If we can lift weights, that is one of the best things we can do for ourselves and our bodies, for longevity and for avoiding, issues further down the line, worrying about breaking hips and stuff, if you're lifting weights, that actually makes your bones stronger. So that is very, very important if you can do that. But if you have a hang up on exercising and you don't want to lift weights or run or any of those type of things, at least just start moving. And if you have one of these little watches or Fitbits or something, really try to get your 10,000 steps in, because if you think about it, we just weren't meant as these human beings to sit in one place all day. We were moving, we were finding food, we were finding shelter, we were constantly on the move before we created these lovely shelters we get to sit in all day. So if you can keep that concept in mind and just get up every hour, whatever you're doing, walk to the kitchen, I don't know, walk down the stairs, walk up the stairs, walk to a different room, at least do that as a bare minimum to get up and start moving.
And I think this is so important. I know for me, I like to walk and to run, right? This is in my jogging, do my little, really, I do high, HIIT. I have to do little sprints, right? That does it for me, right? And it not only does it make, I know it's good for my body, it helps my mood. I consider it my mood stabilizer, right? Is if I can go out and just do some sprints and just get in a sweat, right? I just need to work up a sweat, get my heart rate up to a certain point. And, I had a period of years where I had to quit running because I had gone too hard and got injured and had leg and foot injuries. When I realized I didn't need to be able to do, to run a straight, 5K. I just needed to be able to do intervals enough to get the endorphins or whatever that's released that made me feel good. And so, I now just run 5Ks, right? But that took me a while to figure out, but it makes such a huge difference. But I have a friend who she really inspired me during the pandemic to stick with doing some sort of virtual program. And she had a health crisis in the pandemic, right? And she ended up in the emergency room, and she hadn't gone into the doctor because they said don't go into the doctor unless you have COVID, and don't go to the doctor if you have COVID, right? So anyway, she started walking, but she would walk in her house, and she found a YouTube channel that would help you follow along to do 10,000 steps in your living room. And then she'd put on music, and I looked at one of them, and it made me a little bit of jazz size even, right? There's, you wanted something to do, but she literally, with nothing, she just started marching. She said, I'm just going to put on music videos, and I'm just going to march in place, right? And because she said, I've got to do something for my health. And she does way over 10,000 steps at a time. I mean, she does miles and miles where she is just in her living room doing her thing, and she worked up to it. And it was so inspiring to me. And I just appreciated so much that sometimes we think, well, I can't get outside. It's the pandemic. I can't get to the gym. I don't have time. I'm watching somebody. I can't be gone very long, right? If you got kids, what am I going to do? She literally marched in place in her living room and is doing great. Her health is great. She's just had all kinds of benefits, and she didn't do anything but just put music on and march in place. And then again, there's all sorts of great support. And so this is, you can find a way to move. And I'm like, my friend to me proved that she was like, and she just started with a few steps and has worked her way up to 5 miles or more in her house. I mean, it's crazy, right? And so, I mean, in a good way. I mean, it's beautiful. And, she's probably back out now, because of now that it's warm and pretty. So I just think sometimes we think I have to do 10,000 steps, right? Instead of saying, well, just see how many steps you're doing and add 100, right? Or add, 500 steps and see how few steps those end up being, right? And then add 1,000. If we do it in little increments, it's amazing how much that builds up. And I think with everything that you're saying, and I'm going to say this as a person that has been working on, but has dealt with I had a chronic pain issue from birth that went undiagnosed for years. And so to talk about adrenals, my adrenals were blown out, destroyed by 21 and have never fully recovered. Right. So I have dealt with these things forever. I never got to be a wild kid because I had to go home and go sleep. But it makes a difference. And when you see these things working and you see that you are feeling better and you are thinking more clearly and you just feel, you're like, oh, this is how people feel. It is worth it. And but if you try to, I mean, if you're like me and you say, I'm going to do all the things, right?
No.
You'll feel like none of it's working. So I hope everybody can, hey, if you're listening to us on the replay, if you're listening live, go down in their comments and tell us what you're going to do. What can you do? One thing: sleep, hydrate, eat, move. You don't even tell us what it is. Just what category is it going to be? If you're watching us on YouTube, you're watching us on the replay, just hit us up with which one are you going to be working on? Let us know, because we can encourage one another, right? We can encourage one another around this. So what I'm working on is around eating, and is doing better in meal planning, so that when I'm cooking all this good food, that I will at least pull out a little bit for myself instead of having done all that work and not eating it, right? So, I mean, God, it's like, talk about that's the world's easiest thing, is you already have it. You just got to eat it, right? So that's going to be my my goal that I'm working on. So we're right at an hour. You've been listening to Leading Women with Angela and our guest host, obviously Kay Miller, our health detective, our health coach, who at the very last minute stepped in for us, so that Yolanda could take a break. She's behind the scenes, so every little thing that flips up, that's her saying hi. Oh, okay. I couldn't see that. Somebody said hydrate and move. Miko's like, I need to put my fit back on. Hi, Miko. Yes. Hydrate and move, Miko. Yes. And you know what? The Fitbit, man, that thing works. It will make you, or if you're using your Apple Watch or whatever. I had one, and I invested in a couple years ago, and I quit wearing it because I was in the house all the time. And I do sometimes even just, you can use your phone. Your phone will count your steps. But when you start seeing it, and you look and you're like, oh gosh, if I just did 10 more, if I just did 100 more steps, I'd have.
You go do it.
And then you literally, I'm marching by my bed. Okay, I'm going to get those steps. So yeah, that's a great. Bring out the Fitbits. Everybody has. I think I have probably 2 Fitbits, and then this other super fancy one. I should have just stay with the Fitbit. So that's great. Thanks, Miko, for sharing. Yeah. So before we go, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. I said at the beginning of the hour, I'm going to talk about some of the books, and then I'm going to ask Kay to give us some book recommendations, books, podcasts, documentaries, whatever you would recommend, right? That you think would be good for people. I want to show you guys, I've always got my books, right? So we haven't really picked, Yolanda and I usually pick a book for our Leading Women Read. So please look for our hashtag this month, Leading Women Read. I have some cool books that I'm interested in, as well as some podcasts and things. But I have one. This is for the grown and sexy now. This is an R rated, and it's called Pleasure Activism. And so this is about your sexual health. And so I think that I'm sure Kay can talk to you about that too. We didn't talk about that today, but this is called The Politics of Feeling Good. It's a series of essays. So it's the sort of thing, Yolanda likes the book that you can just pop open and read anywhere. And so you can do that. But it does talk about women's sexual health and about pleasure, of sexual pleasure and other pleasure as part of our health. So I really appreciate when you're talking about food, that enjoy what you're eating. We don't even take pleasure with our food, right? Because we have been taught that pleasure is a bad thing. So for me, my theme this month, choose to challenge. I'm going to choose to challenge that we shouldn't have pleasure in our life. Pleasure is an important part of our health, right? So Pleasure Activism, written and gathered by Adrienne Marie Brown. So I'm trying to take advantage of the library. Because I'm going to be buried in a house made of books. Yes. Yolanda said, I take a day off and Angela talks about pleasure. Yes, girl, you don't even know. See, she knows that I want to talk dirty all the time. And so she's not here. I'm going to do it. That's not dirty talk. That's pleasure.
Not dirty.
A book that I've been waiting for that's been very popular is The Selected Works of Audre Lorde, edited by Roxane Gay. This is a new edition that Roxane Gay, who is a feminist writer, she pulled together just sort of an overview of the works of Audre Lorde. If you've not read her, a lot of people reference her, but have not read her. I'm reading that. We talked about astrology. This is the person I go to for astrology. You Were Born for This, Channy Nicholas. She's got a great Twitter feed. This is about really customizing astrology for your own use. Now, there's a couple of books that I'm listening to as well, because I'm one of these that's ADD with their books. There's a book that everybody's talking about, and let's see if I can pull it up. It's called Detransition Baby. It's a fiction book. It's written by a trans woman, and it's kind of pitched as trans Sex in the City. So it's written by a transgendered woman through a transgendered lens, and she's like, we're not going to, written for an audience. She's not explaining it. She's just talking about, a story that she's written about characters that resonated with her. Detransition Baby. Tori Peters is the author of that, and I'm going to post a link. There's a really good interview with her on Sam Sanders. It's been a minute, and then there's a podcast about Selena. And I remember, I'm old enough to remember when the singer Selena died. I really wasn't a big Selena fan, but I remember her loss. I heard an interesting thing about just a podcast about the impact of Selena. And so I think that, if you're looking for something that, you just like, I don't have time to be reading or whatever, I'm going to put up a link to something about Selena, who was an interesting and dynamic young woman cut down too soon. So those are some of my book recommendations. Now, Kay, what do you have for us? And it doesn't even have to be health. It can be whatever, because we're pleasure.
Yeah.
We're talking about pleasure.
Yes, pleasure. I'm terrible at remembering names of books and things, so I was trying to find one because there is a really great one that I have in my Audible. I can't find it right now, but the genetics book, if anyone does have their 23andMe and wants to kind of dig into some details and kind of learn some stuff about genetics, there's a book called Genetic Testing: Defining Your Path to a Personalized Health Plan. And that's by Christy Sutton. And that's it's a really great book because she gives you not only, hey, this kind of means this or that, but also you might want to try this or try that or avoid this or avoid that. So just remember, these are all recommendations and it's all theoretical. It's not, you definitely have this problem and you're going to die. It's not that kind of thing with genetics.
No, right.
So that's really good. Grain Brain by David Perlmutter. It's an old one. That's oldie but a goodie.
That's a good one. Yeah, no, that's a good one. So if you'll send me the link to the other one, we'll put it up. Yeah. The name of the podcast is called Anything for Selena. I just wanted to double check that. So Lakeisha said she's a Selena fan. And so it's called Anything for Selena. So anyway, we're gonna call it. We're gonna call it a wrap. And we want to thank everybody. Thank everybody for joining us live. If you're listening to the replay, thanks for sticking with us this long. And we'll be back next week with Dryer Buzz, and who knows what other special surprise guests we may have. And if you're a friend of the show, just know we may one day just say, hey, guess what? Get your face fixed. You're going to be on the air with us in about 2 hours, because we don't give you a choice. No, we want to thank you so much, Kay, for doing this. And so tell us where we find you, right? And as I like to say, how do we get you paid? How do people work with you?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. The easiest way to find me these days is to join Clubhouse. No, I'm just kidding. That is where I spend most of my time, though. Is on
Clubhouse. Yes.
Definitely. That is where I spend most of my time and share a lot of information. I do have quite a few different rooms that I'm popping in and out of. So if you are on there, do look for obviously KDM and connect with me there. Otherwise, you can connect with me on Instagram, Twitter, what else? Facebook. I should have the link in here if you're on Facebook, but mostly Instagram is the best way to kind of get in touch with me. And also in my Instagram bio, you will see that I have links to everything. If you want to try and find out what's going on with what you're eating, you can connect to me and do a detox and elimination diet kind of thing to test out what you're eating, all those different kinds of things. I do one-on-one coaching and group coaching, etc. So you can find all of that in my Instagram link. That's the easiest way.
That's fantastic. And I say, gosh, how many, it's been a couple of months now, I guess, that we've been, I basically talk to Kay almost every, 5 days a week. And I will say something about you that I really appreciate is if you've been listening to her, you can just hear in her voice, you can see in her presence, just a very calming and steady approach. And so, sometimes we get really stressed just about the topics. And I think that you
Mhm.
bring such a nice energy to what you're talking about. So I'm like, hey guys, reach out to Kay. Take advantage of the fact that she's presenting herself for this service to the world. And, you know, just rub off a little bit of, get a little bit of her energy, if nothing else, by joining her on her mini clubhouse rooms. So, you know, look for us, Dryer Buzz, on Tuesday through Saturday on Clubhouse. And like I said, Kay, I get notifications. My schedule's weird. I don't often get to jump into the room, but obviously KDM on Clubhouse. Look for her on Instagram. And so thank you, everybody. I like to conclude with I usually do like leading women words of wisdom. So
Mhm.
I'm going to put you on the spot because I would usually do it, but can you leave us with some words of wisdom as we go into the spring, as we go into Women's History Month, as
Mhm.
we become leaders of our own health? What can you give us some words of wisdom?
Yes, definitely. My favorite thing to remember every day as you're going through life, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, that is right where you're supposed to be. A
That's
lot of times,
beautiful.
a lot of times we should ourselves and we're like, I should have did this, I should have did that, I could have been here, I could have been that. Nope, you're right where you're supposed to be. So
That's beautiful. And right where you're supposed to be is sometimes in the shower. So have you showered today? Don't forget
have
to
you?
get your soap from shopdryerbuzz.com. Look down in our, look at our feed. Yolanda, we want to thank you for being our being not only our producer but our sponsor. We thank you, Kay. We want to thanks Dr. Tachi, thanks Lakeisha, thanks Miko, and everybody else who commented. We really appreciate it, and we will definitely see you. We'll be back here next week at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. And if you'd like to be a guest, reach out to us. But in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks, Kay. And
Yeah.
Yolanda, you can cut us off.
Thanks
Bye-bye,
so much for
everybody.
having me. Bye, everyone.